So, okay, we are recording, and this will be on our YouTube channel. And of course, everyone will have access to it. We'll send out the link. And I just want to also remind everyone that at the bottom of your screen, you've got the chat button. And if you have any questions at all for either of our presenters, just please go ahead and type it in the chat. And Mary Beth and I will be monitoring that. And that way, we'll be able to ask your questions. We'll do our very best to get to all of our questions. All right? So without further ado, take it away, Mary Beth.
Okay, so again, we are celebrating Women's History Month for the month of March, and April is Stress Awareness Month. So we have two wonderful presentations acknowledging Women's History Month, and again, stress awareness, mental health, extremely important. So our first presenter this afternoon is our County Clerk, Christine Hanlon, who I would like to invite on camera with us. Hi, Clerk Hanlon, how are you?
Good afternoon. So glad to be with you today.
Good.
Hello.
Well, we're going to hand it over to you. And again, I ask that you just let everyone know about your position with the with Monmouth County.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for inviting me to speak today. As you said, I'm the Monmouth County Clerk. I've been the county clerk for a little over 5 years. I was elected to my first term in 2015. Before that, I was an attorney, a practicing attorney for over 20 years, and then decided to run for office. So now this is my full-time position, and I'm excited that I was elected just recently, again, to serve another 5-year term. Some of you might be wondering, why would the county clerk be talking to us about women's history? But one of the things that many people don't realize is that the county clerk, who's known as the keeper of the records for hundreds of years, really, oversees in Monmouth County the county archives. So we have a separate archives division where we preserve and protect millions of records. We have a lot of government records, but we also have some special collections that we preserve. And one of the things my office does is that every year we plan an Archives Day event every October, where historians come from all over the county to exhibit showcase some of their items, and we always have guest speakers. And in 2019, our office chose as the theme for Archives Day, notable women from Monmouth County. So my office, led by Gary Soretsky, our former archivist, as well as some notable Monmouth County historians like Melissa Ziobro and Randall Gabriellen, Karen Schnitzban, put together a wonderful catalog and exhibit about notable Monmouth County women. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can see some of these things, and we can go through a PowerPoint. So this is a picture of our Monmouth County Archives. It's a gigantic facility.
Christine, it's not coming through as a screen share.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to click screen share. Here we go.
There we go.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, perfect. Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to advance here. Okay, so this is a picture of our archives. This is just a fraction of it. We have millions of records in here that we preserve. Just to give you an idea, we have a research room, and people come in and they do historical research from our archives, a lot of genealogical research too. And this is a picture of Archives Day. As I was explaining, we have a special day every year where we highlight a historical topic. And these are some of the catalogs that we prepare relating to that particular topic. And as I said, in 2019, to coincide with the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, granting women the right to vote, we did a catalog on notable Monmouth County women. And all of these individuals that I had mentioned previously, historians, contributed to this catalog. And I'm going to share some of these profiles with you. But before I get there, I wanted to just highlight a few of our women in government because, or current women or recent, because Monmouth County really has been a leader in advancing women in leadership roles. We have Kim Godano, who was the first Lieutenant Governor of the state of New Jersey. We have Judge Thornton, who is the first Black female assignment judge in the state of New Jersey. My predecessor, Claire French, in county government right now, myself, Commissioner Sue Kiley, Commissioner Lillian Burry, Surrogate Rosemary Peters. So I just wanted to mention a few because all of the women that I'm going to be talking about now are deceased, and they were chosen for the catalog for a more historical perspective. But I wanted to just highlight some of the women who have had recent leadership roles. And really in Monmouth County, half of our county government elected officials are women. So we really have a good record here in Monmouth County. So now I'm going to turn to some of the women in our catalog. And this woman is Julia Lovett Ashby. She was the first woman judge in the county of Monmouth. She was born in Middletown in 1931, and she was drawn to the law by personal fascination when few women at the time sought legal careers. She was admitted in New York in 1956 after graduating from Columbia Law School. She was later admitted to the New Jersey Bar in 1966 and served as an assistant Monmouth County counsel, which brought her into the Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court, which is now really the family court, 2 days a week. And after 9 years, she was nominated by Governor Brendan Byrne in 1976 as a judge of that court. And she was, as I said, the first woman judge in Monmouth County, breaking a very long tradition of male-only benches. Wait, I went too far. Let's go back one. Okay, this is Anna Mahala Field Atchison, an educator and a church official. She shaped the lives of countless Monmouth County children as a public school teacher for 46 years. She was born in Somerville, New Jersey in 1904 and attended local schools through her graduation from Somerville High School in 1923. She began her teaching career in 1925 in Maryland, quickly rising to school principal, but returned to New Jersey in 1927 to work at schools in Shrewsbury Township and Tinton Falls. And she taught grades 1 through 8 at the one-room segregated Pine Brook School. And in this photo, she's holding her school bell. Subsequently, she taught at the Vale Home School, the Tinton Falls School, and the Sycamore Avenue School. She was devoted to her church as she was to her students, and she held many leadership roles. The Sycamore School in Tinton Falls is now named the Mahala F. Atchison School in her honor. We're going to go to Olga Bachl, who was the mayor of Middletown and a Red Bank Register librarian, which was a newspaper that existed in Monmouth County for about 100 years. She was originally from Queens and moved to Middletown with her husband, where they operated the Sleepy Hollow Horse Farm for 43 years. She was elected to the Middletown Township Committee in 1983, and in 86 became the town's first woman mayor, sworn in by County Clerk Jane Clayton at the time, who's seen here in the photo. This is Dr. Jenny Rosenthal Bramley. In 1985, the Interagency Committee on Women in Science and Engineering called Dr. Bramley the most outstanding woman scientist in the federal government. She was born in Moscow in 1909, received her Bachelor of Science from the University of Paris and her Master's and Ph.D. from New York University. At the age of 19, she was the first woman at NYU to get a Ph.D. in physics. She worked at several universities before employment as a physicist at the U.S. Army Signal Corps Laboratories right here at 4th Monmouth in Monmouth County. She held over a dozen patents, including for work on color television tubes and early computer terminals. Countess Roberta Buxhoveden, a champion for children with disabilities. She's best known for her indefatigable efforts in support of the Monmouth Association for Retarded Children, now the ARC of Monmouth. She was born in Poland in 1903 and had 2 children, Gerald, who died very young of pneumonia, and Annabelle, born with Down syndrome. After her first husband's death, she married a Russian count, Anatol Buxhoveden, and moved in 1955 to his Rumson estate in Monmouth County called Riverfields. In 1967, she attended a local chapter meeting of the New Jersey Association for Retarded Children, which I said was later named the ARC of Monmouth. She raised hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years for that organization, which led to the expansion of many services and later the institution of their headquarters in Tinton Falls, when the Board of Freeholders provided 31 acres for that facility. Jane Clayton, one of my predecessors as Monmouth County Clerk, was respected for leadership in business and public service and created a legacy of achievement in Monmouth County history. In 1966, she began more than 30 years in public office when she was appointed to the County Board of Elections. In 1976, she became the first elected woman freeholder, which is now a commissioner as of this year. And then in 1980, she became Monmouth's first female county clerk, serving until 1997. And one of her priorities was the county archives, because many of our government records had been damaged by water and mold in leaky storage locations. She oversaw the creation of the Monmouth County Archives in the lower level of the Manalapan Library to ensure the preservation of countless Monmouth County records. This is Judith Stanley Coleman. Born in Asbury Park, she began political and charitable activism in the early 1970s after graduating from Smith College. Her longest and most influential position was leadership of the Middletown Planning Board. She was founder and long-term president of the Monmouth Conservation Foundation, through which she advocated for responsible growth, open space preservation, and received one of their top awards in 1992. Her most visible appointment was her 5-year chairpersonship of the New Jersey Highway Authority during the 1980s, when it improved roads and service areas of the Garden State Parkway. We have Gertrude Ederle, long-distance swimmer, the first woman to swim the English channels, and she spent the English Channel and spent her childhood summers in the Highlands. Competitive swimming was the focus of her life, and she won a gold and 2 bronze medals in the 1924 Paris Olympics. Annie Hart was the Fairhaven vaudeville queen. She was among the first vaudevillians to settle or summer in Fairhaven. These vaudevillian performers shaped and gave character to the emerging town in the late 1800s. Her career endured into the 1930s when she appeared in the original 1927 Broadway production of Showboat. I'm going to skip through because I'm running out of time. Let's do Dee Holland, jazz pianist. In 1988, Dee Holland was called one of the finest jazz talents ever to come out of the shore by Gerald Camber, the founder of the Monmouth Saxophone Quartet. She was born in Neptune to a musical family in 1923. Dolores D. Holmes was a Jersey Shore vocalist born in Long Branch in 1946, grew up and remained in Matawan, where she may have been the first Black majorette at Matawan High School. After her graduation with honors, she became a key punch operator at Bell Labs in Holmdel, and she began singing and performing in church choirs and groups. A vocalist and voice teacher, she became renowned in Monmouth County. And with Springsteen, days after 9/11, Holmes sang backup of a City of Ruins for the Emmy Award-winning telethon, America, A Tribute to Heroes. Dixie Ann Hoyt was a national water ski champion. At age 11, the Asbury Park Press reported that she was the sensation of the shore area. And in 1960, won the New Jersey State Women's Water Skiing Championship. And in 1965, the United States Women's Water Skiing Championship. She was featured on the ABC Wide World of Sports and CBS Sports Spectacular in Sports Illustrated. Okay, I think I'm going to end the PowerPoint there, and I'm going to turn to a video that I created that highlighted some of the prominent Monmouth County women who were involved in the suffrage movement 100 years ago. So we'll transition to that video now.
Christine, while you're transitioning to that, one question came in
Sure.
in terms of accessing this catalog. Is this something that I can share the link for?
Yes, we have the catalog on our website.
Okay.
And yeah, so I will get the detail, and at the end, I will let you know exactly where to find it. It's in our, okay, now I can't find that. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Shoot. Screen sharing is paused. We may need help with the stop share. I gotta share screen. Why is this not coming up? Oh yeah, okay.
Hello, my name is Christine.
I'm just gonna fast forward a little bit.
You need to screen share it too, Clerk
Oh,
Hand.
This function
Okay.
as the
Coming, I'm sorry.
Everyone needs to appreciate how much technology goes behind these presentations.
I had it all set up, but
I know, we had our dry run.
okay,
So click screen share. There we go.
okay. I'm gonna just fast forward a little bit. Okay, we're gonna start right here.
America. 100 years ago, the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution was officially ratified, and women were granted the right of suffrage. The fight for women's suffrage spanned over 70 years and involved tens of thousands of courageous women and men who risked their lives, risked going to jail, as well as alienating friends, family members, and even their spouses. The state of New Jersey had a very significant role in the history of women's suffrage. And certain individuals right here in Monmouth County were involved in the fight for women's voting rights. Some New Jersey women could vote as early as 1776, as New Jersey's first constitution granted voting rights to all inhabitants of this colony of full age who are worth 50 pounds and have resided within the county for 12 months. But this pertained to only single women because married women at the time could not own property. Unfortunately, in 1807, the New Jersey legislature stripped women of their right to vote. And this was again codified in the second New Jersey Constitution in 1844, which limited voting to free white males. One of the earliest known suffrage pioneers in Monmouth County was a bold Quaker woman named Harriet Lefevre from Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury was a popular destination for Quakers as early as the 1670s. One of the core principles of the Quaker religion is equality, and the Quakers thereby recognized the value of women in colonial communities. Quaker women performed in leadership roles and engaged in social activism on a variety of topics. Shrewsbury Quaker Harriet Lefetre was, according to records, the first known woman to petition the New Jersey legislature in 1857 for women's political rights and women's suffrage. Subsequently, in 1877, many years prior to the ratification of the 19th Amendment, the New Jersey legislature gave women the right to run for school board office, and 10 years later, to vote only in local school board election. One trailblazing Monmouth County woman living in Ocean Grove stepped into the political fray and was elected to her local school board in Neptune Township in 1888. Her name was Axa Cannon Dunham. Dunham was also president of the Ocean Grove and Asbury Park Political Equity Club, which was connected to the National Woman Suffrage Association. Unfortunately, just 5 years after women were given the right to vote in local school board elections, women's voting rights were struck down in the New Jersey Supreme Court case of Allison v. Blake. In this case, the New Jersey Supreme Court ruled that the New Jersey Constitution only provided for voting by men and that women were not allowed to vote. The brave suffragists were not to be deterred. They continued the fight with rallies and meetings throughout the state and right here in Monmouth County. Ocean Grove was a vibrant center for women's suffrage because women in this community were uniquely independent as early as the Civil War, and women owned 69% of the properties, which was very unusual at the time. Another very important figure in the women's suffrage movement lived in Ocean Grove. Her name was Sarah Jane Corson Downs. Downs, or Mother Downs, as she was called, was a social reformer dedicated to the fight for prohibition of alcohol and was president of the New Jersey Women's Christian Temperance Union, which endorsed women's suffrage in 1887. Downs was known to give many speeches with a booming voice, condemning alcohol as the enemy and touting the need for temperance. Audiences listened to her with rapt attention when she spoke. She supported suffrage as a means for women to better protect their homes and children and to help achieve the prohibition of alcohol. Another Monmouth County suffragist, Therese Walling Seabrook, born in 1821, moved to Keyport at the age of 11, just 2 years after the town was founded. She became a prominent member of the community and was an early and vocal supporter of both temperance and women's suffrage. Seabrook joined other suffragists at a meeting of the New Jersey Assembly Judiciary Committee in 1884 to advocate for women's suffrage. She was also the honorary president of the Monmouth County Suffrage Society and a delegate to the National Woman Suffrage Association. As New Jersey women were rallying around the state at this time to promote women's suffrage, they convinced the New Jersey State Legislature to hold an election to determine whether there should be an amendment to the New Jersey Constitution to allow women the vote. The referendum question was to be held on October 19, 1915. Leading up to this referendum, suffragists set up a booth on the Asbury Park Boardwalk to rally support. These women were also advertising a pro-suffrage event that was to take place in Long Branch, featuring the prominent Dr. Anna Howard Shaw, president of the National American Woman Suffrage Association. Sadly, the 1915 referendum did not pass, as every county in New Jersey, except Ocean County, voted against women's suffrage. After that crushing defeat, the New Jersey suffragists turned their attention to getting a federal women's suffrage amendment to the United States Constitution. Several other notable Monmouth County women supported women's suffrage. Red Bank's Mary Wooster Sutton, born in 1866, was the second woman attorney in Monmouth County and the first to have a significant law practice. In the 1914 publication, A Woman's Who's Who in America, editor John William Leonard listed her as a prominent woman who favors women's suffrage. Shrewsbury's Esther Heimer, born in 1898, began fighting for women's rights from the time she was a student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where she marched for women's suffrage. Throughout her life, Esther was dedicated to improving the status of women and served on many boards and commissions relating to this cause, including the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. Esther lived in Shrewsbury from 1941 until her death at the age of 103. The 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, granting women the right to vote, ultimately became the law of the land on August 26, 1920, after enough states ratified the amendment. I hope this video has given you some insight into the courageous Monmouth County women who played a role in the fight for women's suffrage. I would not be serving in this elected position today were it not for the women who fought for this precious right 100 years ago. I encourage you to learn more about the centennial of the 19th Amendment by visiting my website, monmouthcountyvotes.com, where I showcase my office's 19th Amendment recognition program to educate and encourage people of all ages to commemorate this historic milestone. You can also follow the Monmouth County Clerk's Office Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages to learn about the significant dates and the women who paved the road to the passage of the 19th Amendment. And please join the conversation on social media by tagging our page and using the designated hashtag Women's Vote 100 Monmouth. Thank you for watching and listening.
Okay, so that was done for the 19th Amendment centennial last year, but it included a lot of the women that were in the catalog that I was going through earlier in the PowerPoint. Someone had asked where to obtain the catalog and look through it. You can contact our office. It's monmouthcountyclerk.com is our website, and you can find all of our contact information there. You can also go to monmouthcountyclerk.com/archives to find the catalog. And there are about 53 women who were included in that catalog. I just pulled some examples for the video and also just for the presentation today. But there's so many women to learn about. And I want to acknowledge again the people who contributed to that catalog, my archivist, Gary Soretsky, who recently retired, Karen Schnitzban, some of my employees, Mary Hussey, George Joinson at the time, Melissa Ziobro, who's a historian in Monmouth County, works at Monmouth University, and also Randall Gabriellen, Monmouth County, official Monmouth County historian. So I'm happy to take questions, but I know that we're running into time for your next presenter.
Canlin, I do have two. Well, one question is, can anyone access the archives?
So what happens with the archives is that we do tours, you know, when we don't have a pandemic, every year at Archives Day, and I sometimes schedule tours for groups. Anyone can go into the research room and ask for help. We don't really just on a random basis let people back into the archives because it's a preservation area. So as I said, we do tours. Archives Day, we always have a tour. A lot of our records are online though as well. So for instance, if you're doing a research project and you want to get information about a particular person, you can email us and we could help you with the research. We can provide certain documents to you. A lot of them are available online though, too. If you go to our archives website, monmouthcountyclerk.com/archives.
Wonderful, thank you. And we have one of our SCAM members who mentions Karen, how do you say her last name?
Schnitzban, yes, yes. Remarkable Women of the New Jersey Shore. Yes, that is a great book. There's a lot of information in there. And we were fortunate to have Karen contribute to the catalog that I was presenting to you.
It's a beautiful catalog. So yeah, we'll definitely make sure that everyone gets to see the complete catalog. It was very well done. So much.
Yes, and if there's anyone who wants me to mail a copy, if you just reach out to us, we can send out a copy.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, I'm going to come on camera and thank you personally for being with us today and presenting all these wonderful women of Monmouth County. So much history in our county. I don't think we all really appreciate it.
Yes,
as much as we should.
Well, thank you for inviting me to speak today.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to invite Dr. Johnson to come on video. And I'll introduce Dr. Johnson.
Hello.
Hi, Dr. Johnson. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, I'm just going to transition.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second. I think Clerk Hanlon just needs to turn her video off. No, she's off. Okay. Oh, I need to turn the spotlight off. That's what's happening. Okay, there we go. Okay, all right. And I'm going to switch and put your screen up.
And you're going to put the first slide up, right?
Yeah. And does everyone see that?
I don't.
Not seeing it.
I see you.
Yeah, we don't see the slide, Mary Beth.
Okay, we're all having technical difficulties.
Yeah, tough day. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes for all you listeners out there. Here we go.
There we go. Okay. All right.
All right.
Introduce yourself.
I will. I'm Nancy Johnson. I'm a psychologist who specializes in neuropsychology. And neuropsychology is the study of the relationship between the brain, behavior, and emotion. So when I was asked to speak today on the topic of managing your mental health, I started thinking about how much more our society values the physical body than the mind. But if we ignore our mental health, it can have harmful consequences. Can you imagine if we ignored our physical injuries? You broke your hip, shake it off, go for a run. It sounds ridiculous, right? But that's what we do. You feel depressed, you're supposed to snap out of it and cheer up. You can take that slide down. Psychological stressors are much more common than physical ones. Micro traumas like failure, rejection, or larger traumas such as the death of a loved one, abuse, pandemics. I think we'd all agree that the world would be much better off if people were psychologically healthier. Wouldn't it be great if people could feel better about themselves and be more fulfilled? The question is, what can each of us do to live an emotionally healthier life? The first step is to acknowledge that you have psychological needs. If we manage these well, we will be mentally healthier. Everybody has them. We all know what our physical needs are: food, water, shelter, for example. If you're sad, nervous, stressed, you're not weak and you're not crazy. You might just be a human being with unmet needs. What are some psychological needs? Feeling valued and needed, feeling your life has meaning and purpose, feeling that your life makes sense, connecting with something bigger than you. People often ignore these needs. On some level, we all know these things. We know them so well, they've become cliches. We see them on posters, on plaques, on Pinterest. Live your best life. How about, in the end, we only regret the chances we didn't take? And my personal favorite, happiness is an inside job. So why do we know something so important but not live by it? The human brain is really, really good at being negative because our brains are hardwired for negativity. You can put up the next slide, please. Your brain is like Velcro for negative experiences, but Teflon for positive ones. Psychologist Rick Hanson says that in his book, Hardwiring Happiness. Being wired this way was good from an evolutionary perspective. Now we're more likely to die from a heart attack, but during our early history on Earth, we were more likely to be eaten by a powerful animal. The theory is that because our ancestors had to constantly scan the environment for predatory animals in order to stay alive, our brains got really good at seeing ourselves as prey. We're born with brains that are primed to notice a threat before noticing anything else. It's just how we're born. It's not really our fault. Then we have early experiences. From the earliest time a young child hears someone say, "You can't do that," our threat response becomes reinforced. Or it could have been more extreme. You might be a survivor of a negative environment, constant criticism, someone who told you that you weren't good enough, or a caretaker that was very competitive with you. This distorts the way we see the world. It can lead us to develop a tough shell, a survivor mentality that helps us through emotional storms, a hang in there, this too shall pass attitude, which might work for a while, but over time, it can become a very passive approach to life. You're always looking for safety, then you're always playing it safe, then you're settling for relationships and jobs in which you don't feel valued and you don't feel needed. If there's nothing you're getting out of work or a relationship except pay, then you aren't doing something or someone you love. Well, who would want us anyway, right? Next slide. If this becomes extreme, life can stop making sense. You suffer in silence and you live a life, as Thoreau wrote, of quiet desperation. This type of survivor mentality is very common, but it's not the type of resilience we're aiming for. We're going to aim for mental health with a capital H. We're talking about something more. We're talking about making life less bad. We're not talking about making life less bad. We're talking about making it great. Think about some of our other human needs. We need food, right? Do we aim to go shopping for provisions and eat 3 square meals? Or do we want gourmet food porn? Do we want to shelter in a cave? Or do we want to create an inviting home that is decorated to suit our personality? The same applies to our psychological needs. Do you want to live your life always trying to make it less bad? Always trying to get out of people's way? Trying to avoid fear? The most common types of questions I get asked as a psychologist are, how do I get unstuck? Why am I so indecisive? The broader question is, why do people who are not happy or fulfilled continue living the way they're living? If it's obvious that our needs are not being met, why do we settle? Why do people so often complain about being unhappy, nervous, and stressed, and then choose to do nothing? Once we become convinced of something negative, it's very difficult to change our mind. This is why it's called the negativity bias. It really messes with the way we see the world. Depression, anxiety, stress, they aren't just chemical problems in our brain. They're problems of how we see the world. This can sound deep and complicated. It's a lot more complicated than grabbing something to eat when you're hungry. But just like people can reach for fast food that's less healthy because it's easier, people reach for quick fixes when they're stressed. But I promise you, the more you believe that you can TJ Maxx your way out of sadness and into happiness, the more likely you are to become depressed. Advertising and social media would like you to believe it's possible, but study after study shows that it can actually make things worse. If the first step to better mental health is accepting that you have these psychological needs, what comes next? Where should you put your energy? Self-knowledge. Self-knowledge really is the key to managing your mental health. Do you know how your mind reacts to failure, rejection, negativity? You really need to know. For example, if we take rejection very personally, we're going to get depressed. If we see danger everywhere, we're going to get anxious. So ask yourself some questions. How long do you hold on to a negative encounter? A day or a month? Longer? And what do you do with that negativity? Do you turn it inward with negative self-talk? Do you become rageful and aim it outward? Or do you become filled with shame and detached from the world? You know your cholesterol level, but do you know how you handle stress? Are you able to acknowledge stress and then calm yourself? Are you able to sit with yourself quietly and let your thoughts pop up? Or is that too scary? The ability to manage your mental health can be learned at any age. It's also lifelong work that never ends. For example, studies of retired people have shown that the happiest retirees were the ones who had actively worked to replace workmates with new playmates. Hobbies, scan classes, human connections, these matter at all ages, and they contribute immensely to mental health. What you might not know is that the management of mental health uses a very ordinary cognitive ability that we all have: attention. The way you pay attention can lead to better mental health. Mentally healthy people don't deny that negativity and stress exist. They're just very careful about how they pay attention to it. They're not constantly scanning the environment for them. What they are paying attention to are the things they can change. They know that pain is what happens to us and suffering is what we do to ourselves. Mentally healthy people do not feel like victims. Next slide, please. Viktor Frankl epitomizes this. He was a prisoner in 2 concentration camps. His entire family was killed: parents, brother, wife, unborn child. He was starved and tortured. He faced the possibility of death every single day. Unimaginable, right? While there, Viktor Frankl made a conscious decision, a choice, to pay attention to one of the only things he could control: his attitude. He gave the experience meaning by becoming a psychiatrist and creating a form of psychotherapy called logotherapy. He wrote that a life without meaning is what causes boredom and fulfillment. He assessed his situation logically, and somehow he accepted the things he could not change. Acceptance doesn't mean he was okay with what was happening or that he wanted it to continue. It just means he was able to take an overview of his situation and pay attention to what he could control. No poor me mentality there. To quote him, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. It turns out that everybody has the capacity to do what Viktor Frankl did. Our minds know how to make the best of a bad situation. This is good news. And the good news is our psychological immune system. Yes, just like we have a physical immune system, we have a psychological immune system. It's a cognitive process that helps us create or synthesize happiness. Synthetic happiness is what we make when we don't get what we want. You can be just as happy if you don't get what you want as you can if you do get what you want. Next slide, please. In his book, Daniel Gilbert says it best. We synthesize happiness, but we think happiness is a thing to be found. Speaking of saying it best, do you remember Pete Best? Pete was the drummer for the Beatles before Ringo. He got fired. In interviews, Pete has said, "I've no regrets. I'm a lucky guy." That is synthesized happiness. Think about it. He was rejected and told he wasn't good enough. Those are 2 of the most powerful psychic injuries. But his psychological immune system kicked in. Not that he was okay with what happened, but he controlled what he could, his attitude. He became an ex-Beatle with a purpose. He said he was proud of the example he set for people to pick themselves up and get on with their lives. And it's very important to feel that your life has purpose. No poor me mentality here either. Gratitude is a very powerful tool used by our psychological immune system. Gratitude can turn searching for meaning into having meaning. How does this work? Once again, we're talking about where you put your attention. I'm sure we all know someone who has everything they need in order to be happy, and they're not happy. Why? Because they're paying attention to what they don't have. They're scanning the environment for something more out there. Once you start paying attention to what you do have, you become more grateful. Once you feel more grateful, you're more likely to pay it forward. And helping others really gives people a sense of doing something that matters in this world. Next slide, please. Right now, young children are the most vulnerable emotionally. Lindsay McDaniel and Christina Reichert are two early career teachers. They use their quarantine to write a book. How many people can say that? No poor mentality here. I highly recommend that you pay it forward by reading this book or one like it to the young children in your life. Helping someone else feel safe can help give your life meaning. You can end that slide. Right about now, you're probably thinking, darn, this shrink likes to read. And what's with all the brain stuff? I do love to read. It's one of the things that gives my life meaning. But I don't just read about the brain. There's a book that's more on the spiritual side. And if you have to read just one book that can help you manage your mental health, it's this one, The 4 Agreements. Next slide, please. And it might help to know that, like me, Tom Brady has been reading this self-help book for years. He said, it's kind of a mantra for my life, for mine too. Tom called it a very spiritual book, and I agree. He also said, and I quote, you read it and you just go, damn. And if there's a book that made Tom Brady go, damn, I think it's worth reading. Give it a try. All right, what if you've done the reading, you've done the meditation, you've worked on yourself, and you're still stuck? Is it time to go to therapy? How can psychotherapy improve your mental health? In my mind, I've always compared being a psychologist to being an underground coal miner. Just like a coal miner with the light on her helmet enters a dark mine very carefully, we try to enter the patient's unconscious to shed light on some very dark, sensitive matter. The psychologist tiptoes around in there, very gingerly at first. We learn what the patient's subjective reality is. What emotional rules and superstitions do they live by? I see a lot of people who play mind games with themselves. They use or misuse their frontal lobes to have negative experiences in their heads that haven't even happened in real life. They imagine everything that can go wrong because they incorrectly believe that it will prevent those things from actually happening. Bad use of your frontal lobe. It's not just the bad stuff. We also want to find out what energizes and inspires you. And importantly, what will comfort you during times of stress. Just like a miner has specialized tools such as shovels and hammers to extract coal and minerals, we use tools to extract information. A good psychologist is well trained to use the tools of empathy, warmth, a non-judgmental mindset, and an accepting attitude. We take all these tools and we get in there together. It truly is a partnership. We tour the existential muck of a patient's unconscious. Just like coal mining, it can be very dirty work. It's also very hard work. It takes grit and spunk. And that's just on the part of the therapist. During this tour, we're going to find sorrow, loss, trauma. Hopefully, we're going to help you feel safe enough to sit with those feelings. The patient is the storyteller. The psychologist is the story holder. But why does this help? As psychiatrist Dan Siegel says, wonderful things happen when people feel felt, when they sense that their minds are held within another's mind. Feel felt. I love this term. To feel felt means to have someone in your life who not only listens, really listens, but does it with respect and without judgment. If you can look at all parts of yourself without judging yourself, when you come out the other side, you can live your life in a much healthier manner. Because you've confronted your fears instead of ignoring them, you may start living without letting fear guide your decisions. Because you've challenged all that negative self-talk that you've spent a lifetime internalizing, you might develop the self-confidence to deal with the hard stuff. Because you've built up your stress resilience, you might come out the other side with the ability to recover from stress faster. At the beginning of this talk, we all agreed that the world would be much better off if people were psychologically healthier. Well, now that you've been to therapy and you're psychologically healthier, you can help someone else to feel valued because you will have learned the skills to make somebody else feel felt. You become more understanding and empathetic, less judgmental. That can only help. It can help you to be a better parent, grandparent, partner, boss, worker. We all have the capacity to do this work, to be happier and healthier. And it turns out it's not something we can buy or chase or find or get. It turns out, after all, that happiness really is an inside job. Thank you for listening.
Wow, Dr. Johnson, that's a lot of takeaways from that presentation. I'm sitting here writing a lot of notes. I love that retirement, you should replace your workmates with playmates. Very true, right? Because you need to keep that engagement going.
Absolutely.
So I do have a couple of questions. How important are gratitude journals in our ability to manage stress?
Gratitude journals are very important. They're very valuable. The part of the brain that we use when we write is a different part of the brain that we use when we speak or when we watch TV, for example. So writing really does use a different part of the brain and externalizes the gratitude and makes it more real. So I highly recommend that.
Okay. And this is actually my question. So you talked about self-knowledge. You know, I'm going to come on video. You talked about self-knowledge. And, you know, I thought about how when people are trying to watch their food intake and they're keeping a log. So would you actually recommend like keeping a log to see how you're handling with stress and what triggers are and how you react to it, and maybe see if there's a little bit of a pattern going on? And
absolutely. Journals can be very therapeutic. Absolutely. And it's almost like speaking things, make it real, it's different than just thinking it. Once you say something, it's more real. Have you ever had that experience?
Yeah.
Of saying something and then thinking, oh, I didn't even know I felt that way. It sounds so different when I say it. It's the same thing with writing. It feels different. It feels real. It can be very therapeutic. But it really, I think the important thing about journaling is that it's about you. It's about you getting to know you. When you go to therapy, it's not about asking for advice or trying to change somebody else or trying to get somebody else to behave differently. It's really about getting to know yourself. And that's what journaling can do.
All right. And thank you for also, again, shedding light on what a psychologist does, because I think for a lot of people, going to therapy seems very intimidating and they don't know what to experience. So I think you helped, you know, not shed some light, paint a picture of what that would look like. So that was
I get that question a lot. What is it? What happens in there behind that closed door? And how can it really help to talk? How can that help? And it really does help. It's a partnership. And what you're partnering on is getting to know you. Again, it's not about advice giving. It's not about asking somebody's opinion. It's really about getting to know yourself.
Right. Right. Wonderful. Well, thank you again for being with here. And I got to thank you from one of our SCAM members. It was very interesting, she said.
Oh, good. Thank you for having me.
Okay. And again, we will have a slide up at the end with all our presenters' contact information. So thank you again for being with us today, Dr. Johnson.
Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much.
Bye.
You know what?
Oh, yes.
One of my favorite lines was that I wrote it down.
TJ Maxx. Did you write that? Yeah. Can you tell us that again?
You can't TJ Maxx your way out of sadness, but how we have tried.
I wouldn't know about that.
I would.
I wrote that one down too.
And it
Yes,
never
yeah.
works. And also the fact that you mentioned the Four Agreements, which for me is one of my favorite books.
Oh,
I feel
good.
like it should be required reading for every human being.
Absolutely.
I'll say to all
I read it constantly. I read it year after year.
It's just a little book. It's about $6
Yes.
on Amazon. It'll change your world.
It will change your world. And I didn't go into the details of it because it would be a lot longer, our conversation right now, but you just have to trust us, right? Buy the book,
Yeah.
read it. It's 4 things that sound so simple and they're so difficult, but if you can live by them, your life will change.
Buy it for you and then buy one for a friend or your spouse.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Buy it for everybody in your life. Yes.
It's an awesome book. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. This was excellent.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So let's see. We're still recording. Okay. That hasn't changed.
We're stuck.
Do we have any other questions to share?
No, that we covered all
Okay.
the questions. Yeah.
So Mary Beth, you want to
Yeah.
give some coming attractions?
Yes, I will. So I just have some announcements. So April 8th is our Build a Better Brain. I'm just
Yes.
going to remove this spotlight a second. Okay. And that is from 1 to 2:30. And again, we have 2 wonderful presentations. We have the Monmouth University Occupational Therapy Department joining us on this event. And we're going to have some meditation and brain games. It's going to be a wonderful virtual event. Open house we have on April 5th through April 9th, where we have an opportunity for existing SCAM members or anyone from the community to come and try a class before our spring semester starts, which is on Monday, April 26th. So it gives you a chance to sample some classes. And again, you can check our website for details. And finally, May 13th is our next Lunch and Learn presentation. And it's Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield and Monmouth Medical Center presenting.
Well, one more thing I'll add is that, of course, we have Easter and Passover coming up very shortly. And so, of course, we want to wish everyone a wonderful holiday, whatever you're celebrating. You know, be safe and enjoy whatever it is that you do. And thank you all for being with us today. It's been our pleasure. And we will see you all in May.
Yes, and I'm going to put on the slide so that they can see the contact info.
Yes, please do.
I need to switch my PowerPoint.
We'll send out some of the links. I wrote them down from the county clerk on how to access the archives and that video. When you get your, you'll get an email with the link for this video, and we'll include all of that information in there as well. But here's the contact info if you need to reach out at all. Whoops.
Wait, what happened to it? Oh, there we go.
There we go.
All right.
Only 2 slides in that slideshow. Okay.
Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Have an enjoyable day. Be safe.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.